And we're kicking off with Crown Jewel, where Roman Reigns will defend his undisputed WWE Universal Championship against LA Knight in what'll be Reigns' 11th match of the year. This will also likely be Reigns' final match of the year, as sources who have reached out to Ringside News revealed that there are no plans for him to wrestle in 2023 again after this weekend in Riyadh. This means that Reigns will take a few months away from the ring, and it is believed that the Royal Rumble will mark Reigns' next title defense and may be his only TV match before WrestleMania. Reigns' part-time schedule goes hand in hand with the special care his creative is given, as he has significantly more input into his character than other wrestlers. Paul Heyman, who's often credited as a creative genius, helps come up with storylines for Reigns, and both Triple H and Michael P.S. Hayes are also said to be deeply involved in his creative. Reigns' limited schedule makes him a must-see attraction when he appears, but after this Saturday, fans will have to wait until the Rumble in Tropicana Field before he's in action again. Do you think it's right for WWE's top star to have such a relaxed schedule? Or should Reigns be more present given his position on the card? Let us know in the comments. In stark contrast to Reigns, Seth Rollins has proven to be a fighting champion since capturing the World Heavyweight Championship in May, competing on TV, at PLEs, and at live events. During his feud with Shinsuke Nakamura, Rollins' very real back issues were brought up, leaving many to question just how long Seth can continue in the ring. When you factor in that he has a family, it wouldn't be a surprise if Rollins planned to leave the ring soon. And during My Last Meal, Seth explained his thought process on retiring. He said, "I've had a lot of injuries, I'm constantly banged up, bumps and bruises here and there. Separated my shoulder more times than I can count, broke my jaw, blew my knee out completely, tore my MCL a separate time after that. I had a little baby girl, and then you start to think, okay, when do I want to wrap this thing up? Mostly so I could be, an active father for her and not just be on the road all the time. I went to see one of my favorite bands a couple of weeks ago, The Wonder Years, and the lead singer Dan is a good friend of mine, and he's got this bit where he tells the audience that we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning. That resonated with me. The crowd boos, and then he turns around and says, we've got a lot more in the tank. That's how I felt. It was a real fired up moment for me, Up there in the bleachers, not in the pit, nowhere near the pit. Rollins may know that the majority of his career is behind him, but that doesn't mean he'll be hanging up his boots anytime soon, as he feels he has plenty to give. Whether Rollins' body can withstand the might of Drew McIntyre at Crown Jewel, time will tell, but retiring from wrestling is certainly something that the architect is thinking about. Many have been surprised to see McIntyre have a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship, considering that it's no secret that his contract is running out. In an update from Fightful Select, it was confirmed that McIntyre has not signed a new deal, despite rumors to the contrary, and the report described Drew as the first major domino that could fall in the TKO era. It was added that McIntyre has 5 months left on his deal, which means his contract will expire prior to WrestleMania 40, but it's clear that WWE is eager to re-sign him. McIntyre and WWE have actually finalized terms of a new agreement, and WWE has sent a rough copy of the new contract for Drew to sign, but for whatever reason, he hasn't signed yet. By this time next week, McIntyre could be the World Heavyweight Champion, even with his contract ticking down, and we'll have to see if his contract plays a role in this Saturday's booking. Over to NXT Halloween Havoc Night 2, which saw Ilja Dragunov versus Carmelo Hayes 3 for the NXT Championship, mere weeks after the Mad Dragon won the gold at No Mercy. Defending the title against Hayes for the first time, Dragunov didn't hold back in his physicality, which was met with Hayes' fast-paced, high-flying offense. In the closing moments, Hayes reversed Dragunov's top rope H-bomb with a codebreaker before ascending to the top turnbuckle, only to be distracted by Trick Williams. Williams looked mad as hell after previously being attacked by a mystery assailant, and with Hayes distracted, Dragunov delivered a superplex and torpedo Moscow to score the win. Post-match, Williams approached Hayes and dragged him up to his feet, but before he could say anything to the seemingly culpable Hayes, the camera panned to a backstage assault. Baron Corbin was seen yelling at Dragunov, who was now on the floor, reminding the champ to keep his head on a swivel. There's perhaps no better opponent for Hayes than Dragunov, as the two continue to elevate each other, and this match came off extra heated due to some unspoken hate between the two. Their previous 2 PLE matches may have been longer, but that didn't take away from the impact of this main event, and Dragunov winning was certainly the right call. With the post-match antics, both Hayes and Dragunov have new feuds to work through, ending their feud and series of epic matches, at least for now. NXT North American champion Dominik Mysterio defended against Nathan Frazer this week, and it was no surprise that Dirty Dom had Rhea Ripley with him. Fitting the Halloween theme, Mysterio came out dressed in prison clothes and a handcuff, and had a placard citing Dom's crime of having a luscious mullet, which went viral online. With help from Ripley, Dominik survived Frazer's speed, and after sending him off the top rope through the announce table, finished him in the ring with a frog splash. The Judgment Day's post-match celebration was short-lived, as Wes Lee appeared unannounced, and even in his civilian clothes, he was ready to brawl. Mysterio may have left with the North American title, but Lee was clearly focused on regaining the title, a point that the commentary team also made clear. This match was a highlight of the show, as Frazer delivered in the biggest match of his NXT run to date. Dom was still a heat magnet, and it was good to see Lee back in action. While bringing him all the way around to the title he lost seems counterproductive, he may also be the best option to dethrone Mysterio, which would likely end Dom's time with NXT. It was during last week's Collision that Kenny Omega challenged AEW World Champion MJF, and the cleaner wanted to do much more than take MJF's title. Omega also wanted to stop MJF from breaking his record as the longest reigning AEW World Champion, but should that match have been saved for a pay-per-view? That's the mindset of several people, including Eric Bischoff, who on his 83 Weeks podcast questioned the decision to have the match with no advanced promotion. Bischoff didn't agree with the match happening on free TV, but said if they were going to do it, they should have saved it for when they had competition, such as the World Series or college football. Mark Henry may be a part of AEW, but even he didn't agree with the booking, and on Busted Open Radio, he said there's no way that MJF vs. Omega should have been on free TV. Henry did have some positive things to say, unlike Bischoff, adding that Omega deserves a pay-per-view platform, and that MJF is good now and is only going to get better in the years to come. While the two think the match should have been saved, it had to happen last week, as Collision was the last AEW show before MJF broke the record for the longest title reign. Had the match been saved for Full Gear or a later date, there would have been none of the drama of whether MJF will break the record, which up until now had been held by Omega. MJF and Kenny Omega had a stellar match that would have belonged on any pay-per-view, but had to happen last week for storyline purposes, but perhaps we'll see a rematch on a bigger show down the line. At a recent Republic of Lucha show, Sami Callihan was cutting a promo in the ring and spotted a familiar face in the crowd, that being How I Met Your Mother's Jason Segel. The actor was clearly having a blast at the show, but when Callihan threw Penta on Segel and delivered a super kick, it appears that Segel caught some of the kick as well. Even with the kick, Segel had a great time at the show, and AEW ref Aubrey Edwards was thrilled to meet him. And who knows, maybe we'll see him at a future wrestling event. For someone who previously said he wouldn't be a regular on TV, unlike the McMahons, Tony Khan has made a lot of announcements on TV as of late, and another one is to come tonight. On X, it was revealed that Khan will be making an announcement on tonight's edition of Dynamite, and we'll have to wait and see what the AEW president has to say. Fans have had various reactions to this tease, and many haven't been amused by yet another abrupt announcement from Khan, with some feeling that his important announcements are getting far too frequent. Other fans, however, are keeping an open mind and want to see what he has to say on Dynamite, with one fan guessing it could be AEW moving to 3 hours. Others were far more wild with their speculation, believing it could be the return of CM Punk, or something even less likely, the debut of Ryback Reeves. The only way to know what Khan will announce is by waiting for the show, but if this trend continues, expect a very important announcement this week, next week, and likely the week after that. NXT Halloween Havoc also saw Fallon Henley impersonating Tiffany Stratton yet again, and imitation wasn't the sincerest form of flattery to the former women's champion. When Mackenzie Mitchell showed Stratton a video of Henley, the center of the universe attacked her double, wrapping Henley's legs around steel post with a figure 4 until officials intervened. Henley was later medically disqualified due to the attack, and her status is now listed as day-to-day, and while it's a shame that their match has been delayed, there is a silver lining. This match will hopefully seem bigger when it does happen, and will hopefully put a bigger spotlight on Henley in a women's division that needs fresh talent to step up. Stratton is going to be called up sooner than later, and for now is floating around in a spot similar to Bron Breakker, as she could help build the future of NXT before she heads to Raw or SmackDown. Mr. Stone was barely able to stand after facing Bron Breakker at Halloween Havoc, with the former NXT champion dispatching of him with a spear, but wasn't done just yet. Breakker tried to hurt Stone more afterward, but Von Wagner made the save, and while he was still unsteady, he was able to send Breakker running to the back. Stone may be a manager in WWE, but had 2 decades of in-ring experience prior to signing, and while that was obvious in how he bumped for Bron, this was never going to be a competitive match. Wagner's return was far more important, as the crowd was into the big man, who would earn a lot of credibility if he beats Breakker when they next face off. That match may come next week, as that's what Wagner demanded near the end of the night, and with Alba Fire as Maleficent and Isla Dawn as the Evil Queen watched closely, these two may have had a role to play in what's to come. NXT's next major event will be Deadline on December 9th, and the show will feature the return of fan favorite, the Iron Survivor Challenge. It's been revealed that the competitors will be announced on social media over the next few weeks, and we'll have to see who competes next month at Bridgeport, Connecticut's Total Mortgage Arena. In the finals of the Women's Breakout Tournament, Lola Vice defeated Kalani Jordan thanks to the outside interference of Elektra Lopez when Jordan attempted a split-legged moonsault. With this win, Vice has earned herself an NXT Women's Championship match in what is by far the biggest win of her NXT career. Women's Tag Team Champions Chelsea Green and Piper Niven retained their titles against JC Jane and Thea Hale, and this match only caused more tensions within Chase U. Hale and Jane would have likely won the titles had Andre Chase helped them cheat as Jane demanded, and it'll be interesting to see whose side Hale takes in all of this. Halloween Havoc opened with the Tables, Ladders, and Scares match between the Creed brothers and Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo, which saw the Creeds get the win. While the result was never in much doubt, having Angel and Humberto have a strong showing will do well for the duo, who have often been forgotten about in the tag team shuffle, but have plenty to give. Night 2 of Halloween Havoc was not as monumental as Night 1, but was still a good show, with high stakes, engaging moments, and consistent action. The Creeds vs. Angel and Humberto opener and the NXT title main event bookended a night of quality wrestling, and more than anything, NXT nailed the Halloween vibe of the show. The show had costumes galore, with Shotzi and Scarlett delivering as the Hots, and were clearly having a ton of fun on the show, which also kept stories moving forward. Ilja Dragunov cannot miss as champion, and he has a motivated Baron Corbin challenging him, while Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams will likely both get involved in the Iron Survivor Challenge. Lyra Valkyria has plenty of fresh challengers lined up, including Breakout winner Lola Vice, and will have another soon enough with the Women's Iron Survivor Challenge. If the action remains this strong weekly, and the rivalries grow more heated and diverse, NXT could rival Raw and SmackDown for must-watch WWE programming on what'll be a thrilling road to NXT Deadline. During the closing moments of Bound for Glory, Impact Wrestling announced it will soon become TNA Wrestling again, starting with their Hard to Kill event in January of next year. Many fans are excited for the change, as they grew up watching TNA wrestling during the company's peak in popularity, but RVD isn't convinced by this name change. Despite being a former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, RVD told listeners of his One of a Kind podcast that he was skeptical of the impending change. He explained, "I don't know what went into their decision to do it, I don't have that information. Without that insight, it could be a good or bad business decision. They could have moved intellectual properties, they could have moved from one LLC to another for who knows what reason, maybe they have new investors, I have no idea. But just based on that question, going back to TNA Wrestling from Impact Wrestling, this is just my opinion, I'm not trying to talk on anybody, I don't see it as making that big of a difference. To me, it doesn't sound like earth-shattering news. When people call Impact Wrestling TNA in conversation, it's almost interchangeable. On that basis alone, I don't think that just by changing the name to TNA Wrestling on that alone is going to add a lot of value, or any value in my opinion, being an outsider to the company on its own. I don't see it adding value to it. If it's along with other plans, which I'm sure it probably is, then they probably have some potentially good ideas and more power to them." Eric Bischoff shared a similar sentiment on his podcast, saying the change may actually hurt TNA due to the suggestive meaning of the name that could deter potential new viewers. "I just don't think that TNA brand had enough value ever so that bringing it back is going to have any kind of, no pun intended, impact. Unless the product changes and there's significant change in the presentation, it's just changing the name of the show, and I don't think that's going to matter one bit. You can say, it means total non-stop action. It means tit ass. It was a Vince Russo idea." Whether people like the idea of a name change or not, it's happening this coming January, and only time will tell if this is good or indeed bad news for a company currently known as Impact. It was during a recent episode of the My World podcast that Jeff Jarrett said he'd love to have Jim Cornette attend an AEW event in what was quite the generous offer from Double J. It may have been generous, but that doesn't mean Cornette will be accepting it, especially given that Cornette has often been critical of AEW and its roster, especially the EVPs in the past. In a post on X, Cornette declined Jarrett's invitation and made sure to take a dig at AEW's ticket sales methods, as well as blasting what he believes was an attempt for ratings. I appreciate the invitation from Jeff Jarrett to attend the AEW taping in Louisville tomorrow. I tried hard to make it work, but I couldn't find another person in town going, so we could split the 2-for-1 ticket offer. But maybe they can find another ratings ploy in time. AEW has welcomed several legendary names from wrestling, but Jim Cornette will not be among them, as this week's Louisville taping will go ahead without the controversial wrestling mouthpiece. When Sareee joined WWE in 2020, her debut was delayed due to the pandemic, and after what many felt like an underwhelming run, the Japanese star announced her exit earlier this year. Sareee said that she felt like she was spending too much of her best years in wrestling sat on the sidelines, but fans could soon see her back in the US, but not with WWE. PW Insider reports that Sareee could be competing in the States again soon enough, over a year after her most recent match on American soil. They explained, "Former WWE star Sareee, aka Sareee in Japan, is currently in negotiations to return to the United States to perform, PWInsider.com has confirmed with a source in Japan. We are told that Sareee, who chose to exit WWE at the conclusion of her contract and had been greatly underutilized during her time there, is deep in contract negotiations." The report added that Sareee is not believed to be in negotiations with WWE, so if she does return to the US, it'll be for another promotion, possibly AEW or somewhere smaller. While her NXT run fell flat, Sareee has said she learned a lot of good things in WWE, and would you like to see her reach a new deal with the company? Sound off in the comments below. During this week's Raw, the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile made their debuts on the Red brand, with the Creeds beating Alpha Academy's Otis and Chad Gable in a hard-fought match. Post-match, the two teams shared a sign of respect, as the former Raw Tag Team Champions were clearly impressed by the brand's newest superstars, and they're not the only ones. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reports that WWE officials were very happy with the Creeds and Ivy Nile, who also appeared on last night's NXT Halloween Havoc Night 2. While the group debuted on Raw, Wade Barrett noted that both Raw and SmackDown are preparing contracts with the trio, meaning they could be appearing on Friday nights soon enough. Whatever brand the Creeds land on, it's clear that their days in NXT are up, and the future looks bright for the brothers at Nile after this reaction to their debut on Raw. During a 2021 episode of Rampage, CM Punk and Eddie Kingston made their feelings about each other abundantly clear, and while Punk isn't around anymore, that hasn't calmed down the Mad King. Speaking to Adrian Hernandez, Kingston was asked if he had any regrets about the promo, in which he dared Punk to quit wrestling again and made his views clear on the Chicago wrestler. "No, I'm doing my job, that's how I felt. I didn't know what anyone else in the locker room felt, I didn't care, it was how I felt. I didn't want him there. Me and Punk don't like each other, that's fine. You're not gonna like everyone you work with. Do I wish he was still in AEW and I wish it worked out differently? Yeah, because he helped the company. Other than that, I don't give a what he does. Me and him never got along anyway. We don't have to be best friends to fight each other. It makes it better when we're not best friends. I don't wish him bad, but I don't wish him good either because I don't That's it." Punk is one of many wrestlers Kingston has an issue with, and that's unlikely to change anytime soon, but that doesn't mean that the ROH World Champ is relishing in Punk's departure from AEW. Next April, WWE will take over Philadelphia for WrestleMania 40, and Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers may have the best seat in the house at the two-night event. After breaking out some DX crotch chops recently, Embiid was contacted on X by Triple H, who offered an invitation for Embiid to come to WrestleMania next year. Embiid was fined $35,000 for his showboating, but it won't have to worry about that at WrestleMania, so don't be surprised if he takes the game up on his offer. It's been close to a year since Nikkita Lyons injured her knee in January 2023, an injury that forced the popular young star to have MCL surgery that has derailed her career. While Lyons recently teased that she will be ready to return soon, a source in NXT's creative, who was contacted by Ringside News, said that all that's known about her is that she's currently injured. It seems that there's no plans in place for Lyons to return anytime soon, and while she's been a regular at the Performance Center, don't expect her on TV just yet. And we're ending with the recent Francis Ngannou vs Tyson Fury fight, where Vince McMahon made a rare public appearance alongside The Undertaker, but the pair did not stay for long. Fightful Select reports that both men were on a plane from Saudi Arabia back to the US after the fight, meaning if they plan to be at Crown Jewel, they'll have to make another trip. At the pre-fight festivities, McMahon spoke highly of the types of shows WWE brings to Saudi Arabia, and even called the country WWE's new home, but that didn't mean he stuck around after Fury's big win.